This is Archaeodeath, an exploration in the archaeology of death and memory, past and present, with Professor Howard Williams.
Hello everybody, it's Archaeodeath here with my friendly Archeo Aardvark, and I'm on for a brief live to celebrate reaching 28,000 followers here on the Clock app. Yes, 28,000 of you, random and people from across the world, have decided, for reasons that are beyond comprehension and understanding, to follow me, a professor of archaeology, here on social media. And not only do I have various other social media manifestations, including Twitter, Facebook, the WordPress original blog, the YouTube channel for long format videos, as well as I'm brand new to Mastodon. I don't have big hairy fur and I don't have tusks, but I've gone Mastodon with Archaeodeath. So not only do I have all that, but I'm on this TikTok app as well, and I'm really grateful to have received 28,000 followers. No idea what it means or what it'll do for anything, but it's great to be here. Now, I'm going to be using this little live to give you an update on my academic life and what's going on, and I'm going to then proceed to part 2, which is going to be responding to the Society for American Archaeologists letter about the TV program Ancient Apocalypse, which I thought is an important moment for reflection on public archaeology, how archaeology is perceived to the wider public. And thirdly, I will be thirdly, there are 3 fingers, so I've got to get my fingers right. Thirdly, I will be addressing, after going through some updates on what's going on in Archaeodeath life and times, after talking about the SAA's letter to the head of global television and the chief executive at ITN about Graham Hancock's Ancient Apocalypse, I'm going to be discussing a really much more important news story. More important than anything I will ever cover, and I will keep that under wraps, so there'll be a reveal in the third part, okay? So, what can I tell you about my life in academic archaeology to start off? Well, beyond getting 28,000 followers on this app, I have been busy with my teaching, my academic research. I am doing tweaks to my paper, reflecting on the funerals represented in series 5 of the popular long-running TV show Vikings. And I'm talking about the archaeological inspirations for the TV show Vikings and how it shows funerals. And I've previously published a 2019 chapter reviewing the funerals in seasons 1 to 4. And now I'm doing season 5, where we have boat burials in the English landscape as part of the Vikings military expeditions. There are uses of cremation to conceal the Viking armies in York, in the ruins of the Roman town. We also have, in season 5 of Vikings, first aired from 2018-2019, we have funerals and burials in the Icelandic landscape, as well as crazy King Ivar back in Kattegat doing all sorts of mad crap with the dead as part of his cult of his own self-importance and his divine kingship. So it's a really interesting season to reflect on how history, archaeology and mythology is wrapped into the Viking world. So I'm doing that. I've also got my new books out, of course, and I've done book launches and put them on my YouTube channel of my brand new edited collection, The Public Archaeology of Treasure, as well as my other edited collection on archaeology's antiquaries, the essays of Morgan Evans. And I've got the Authors Night Journal Volume 4 out online. So I've been busy publishing and teaching my students. This morning I taught them about Viking ships and ship burials and shipwrecks from the Viking Age. Oh, it's never stopping. But in addition to all that academic work, I've also been involved in industrial action, because yes, our employers are not paying us enough. And they're not only not paying us enough, they're ramping up the workload. There's still a pay gap of inequality with black and women getting paid, black people and women getting paid much less than white male scholars and academics, and our professional services and our academic staff have been out on strike. So Thursday and Friday of last week and Wednesday of this week we've been taking industrial action, which has meant that the Solidarity T-Rex has come out, and I've been doing my dancing around as a dinosaur, and it's all very silly, but it's silly for a good cause of raising awareness that not only nurses, not only teachers, not only rail workers, not only all the other public service employees that are either balloting for industrial action in the UK or been going on industrial action, but so university, colleges and lecturers and professional service staff at universities are also on industrial action. Not only the strike days, but we're on action short of a strike, which is contract limited work. We're not going to do anything extra. So really I shouldn't be on here talking to you, but hey, I'm doing it because I'm trying to raise awareness. So it's been this sounds, I don't get paid for the strikes, and I might get penalised for the action short of a strike. So it's a financial kick in the teeth for me. I didn't want to do it, but we're on this strike action because it matters, not only for us, but for our students and the future of the sector. So solidarity, brothers and sisters and anyone in between who has been also conducting industrial action in your field and your expertise, because this really matters. And the UK's in a dire time, and we're not doing it out of a bit of a laugh. We're doing it as a last resort because we've got a cost of living crisis, we've got all manner of other things going on, and we're just trying to get by. And we're all in, as a senior academic, I'm trying to sort of lead by example, because I'm not only being financially impacted, but I know colleagues in much more precarious situations than I am who need people like me to stand up for them. So that's what's going on in terms of my academic work. And the strikes have been bloody exhausting and also stressful, because you don't want to be standing out on a road being beeped in a positive way in support, but there's always the chance someone will come up and do some aggro. And yes, last year I had some angry men came up and started haranguing us and asking, well, you're striking for better pay, are you? And I said, yes. And they went, well, what about local housing issues? I said, yes. And they went, well, there you go then. And I said, yes. And then he walked off. But he obviously wanted you may be striking, but there's other issues going on. But we tried to try to keep it positive, upbeat, and we rallied into town. To look at some of my TikTok videos, we marched into town, and there was an old lady looking at us in disgust, going, "Dearie me," like, "Oh dear, look, people on strike protesting. We can't have that in the UK." And I just smiled, But most people are really supportive. It's been really beneficial. So yeah, I'm in a busy teaching term, still teaching, marking. I've got some marking to do. I'm doing research on Necro Vikings. Books are out. That's the first thing I want to cover, and to say again, for those coming late, thank you for 28,000 followers on this wonderful TikTok app, which is so positive, constructive, engaging. And not everyone's an expert in everything. I'm certainly not an expert in everything, but I'm trying to share what knowledge I have, get a bit of dialogue, and address issues to do with the ethics, the current debates, new discoveries in mortuary archaeology. So you'll have seen I've done videos on a new story about Viking burials from Sweden with swords placed vertically into the graves. You'll find videos where I talk about the ethics of the National Geographic just rocking up and filming during the professional excavation of some 18th century war dead at a battlefield site, and I comment on that. So there's lots of things I'm commenting on, lots of different aspects of that I think should interest you. So keep following me. I'll keep pumping out the videos. I've just recorded another 17, 3 today, and another bunch that I'll be discussing issues that you raise, and also discussing issues that I want to talk about. But I want to get on to my part 2 of this live, if I may, and I will get to some questions at the end, and I will skim back through. Oh yes, Doctor Who. Yes, I've also been doing Doctor Who videos. I had a Rebel Rabbi live, which I posted on my YouTube channel for Archaeoden, where we discuss seasons 1 to 4 of the revived series of Doctor Who, and I'll be coming back and hopefully discussing with the Rebel Rabbi again season 5 of the revived series, a bit of Matt Smith, but the scarf might come back in that venue as well. Anyway, my second area I wanted to discuss is this letter dated 30th of November 2022 from the Society of American Archaeology to Miss Bella Bajaria, head of global television at Netflix, and Miss Rachel Corp, chief executive of ITN. And this is an interesting moment because, as well as been lots of social media noise about ancient apocalypse, ArchaeoWolf, every good archaeologist has dared to say the obvious, that this is an utter disgrace to see Graham Hancock still alive and still spinning, decades long grifting nonsense about ancient societies in a new Netflix funded Ancient Apocalypse series, and it's annoying and it's infuriating, and I haven't addressed it. So this is the moment. This is where I'm going to address Ancient Apocalypse. I'm going to do it by talking about the letter from the SAA and what they say, and then I'm going to reflect my views on what the official word of the Society of American Archaeology has got to say. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to read out what they say. Dear Miss Bajari and Miss Corp, I write this open letter to express the Society of American Archaeology's concern over the series Ancient Apocalypse, hosted by Graham Hancock, produced by ITN Productions and aired on Netflix beginning on the 11th of November. This series publicly disparages archaeologists and devalues the archaeological profession on the basis of false claims and disinformation. I write to encourage you to correctly classify the genre of the show, to provide disclaimers about the unfounded suppositions in the show, and ideally to balance the deleterious content in the show with scientifically accurate information about our human past. The Society for American Archaeology, SAA, is an international organisation that since its founding in 1934 has been dedicated to research about and interpretation and protection of the archaeological heritage of the Americas. With more than 5,500 members, the SAA represents professional and avocational archaeologists, archaeology students in colleges and universities, and archaeologists working at tribal agencies, museums, government agencies and the private sector. The SAA has members throughout the United States as well as in many nations around the world. The SAA supports its members' work to understand humanity's past through ethically based scientific and humanistic investigation, to promote preservation of archaeological resources and cultural heritage through support of legislation and education, to create collaboration between the profession and descendant communities, and to assist professional growth. The members of the SAA champion archaeologists in their efforts to advance knowledge of and protect the past for society, and to build a more just and equitable future for the profession. The effects of this show run directly counter to the purpose, mission, goals and vision of the SAA. Whoa! Yeah! We have 3 principal concerns with regard to Ancient Apocalypse. 1. The host of the series repeatedly and vigorously dismisses archaeologists and the practice of archaeology with aggressive rhetoric, willfully seeking to cause harm to our membership and our profession in the public eye. Netflix identifies and advertises the series as a docu-series, a genre that implies its content is grounded in fact when the content of the show is based on false claims about archaeologists and archaeology. And 3, the theory it presents has a long-standing association with racist, white supremacist ideologies, does injustice to indigenous peoples, and emboldens extremists. The letter then goes on for another page and a half, and I won't read out the rest, but the letter then makes links to various recent social media and magazines which combat pseudo-archaeology, takes Hancock to task for how he dismisses archaeologists and advances a spurious idea of an advanced global Ice Age civilization for which there is no convincing archaeological evidence. It also promotes, he makes the point that Hancock is continuing 140 years of 19th century fantasist Atlantis theories that were first promoted in the 1880s, and therefore Hancock's narrative emboldens extreme voices who continue the chauvinistic, racist and anti-Semitic discourses of ancient civilizations that were white, that spread out and shared pearls of technology and knowledge with lesser peoples. And that's what Hancock is basically spinning. He's been very canny, he's moved his conversation, he's pulled back from some of the terminology, but he's doing exactly the same thing in 2022 as he was doing in 1982 or 1992 anyway. Anyway, the conclusion of the letter is, for these reasons we call upon Netflix and ITM Productions to remove any labels that state or imply that this series is a factual documentary or docu-series, and reclassify this series as science fiction. We urge that both Netflix and ITM Productions to add disclaimers to the series that its content is unfounded. We also request that Netflix develop a policy, this is the constructive point, I think it's good, that balances such false narratives with the presentation of scientific documentaries and accurate reporting on the knowledge that archaeologists have generated and continue to generate every day. Thank you, Daniel H. Sandweiss, PhD, RPA, President of the Society of American Archaeologists. Okay, so I thought it would be worth sharing that with you because I have some views on this. And firstly, I would like to say that the three key points: the pernicious nature of the attack on archaeologists by this show, the misrepresentation of the entire show as a docu-series when it's a fable and it's science fiction, and the racist ideologies and gross counter-narratives, the counterfactual spin of this show. I 100% agree with that statement. I 100% agree with the SAA and their narrative that this show is promoting those views. I haven't watched it in detail, but I've been scouring through all of the archaeological commentary, and I have no point of disagreement over those points. However, I have a series of problems with this kind of letter and very much an American take on responding to pseudo-archaeology. And so while I will repeat for the third time, if not fourth time, I completely stand with the SAA on their key points that Ancient Apocalypse is not only lacking in any evidential basis, it's deeply dangerous and racist, and it's misrepresenting as factual docu-series something that is basically a fable born of 19th century nonsense. I totally agree with that, but I have some issues about the attack on the discipline, because while this show is an attack on the discipline of archaeology, there's a broader problem with attacks on archaeology that's anti-science, anti-humanities, and is countering the human story. It's coming through eroding government funding. It's coming through looting and development of archaeological sites and resources. It's through the erosion of indigenous rights and attempts to undermine indigenous knowledges. And it's about promoting culture wars that attack a whole host of aspects of the archaeological profession and cognate disciplines, including history, anthropology, sociology, the subjects that span the sciences and the humanities, the social sciences too. This is coming from well-funded, well-positioned, fake news promoting commentators, including not only the Jordan Petersons of this world, not only the Josh that twat with the podcast Rogan guy. It's coming through the mainstream media, and it's aggressive. It's not simply right wing. It's a particular QAnon fantasy theorists and their various spin-offs. And Hancock never started out, he's a progenitor before all of that came along, but he's now feeding back into that fantasy world that is not simply about online misinformation. It's having real policy and real life consequences for people. So I kind of agree with the SAA, but I don't think they go far enough in putting Hancock's latest version of Ancient Apocalypse, which is nothing new. He's not saying anything new. He's riding roughshod over any evidence, but it's taking on a new, dangerous narrative. But I also have some problems with US archaeology and how they frame this, because even that response is rather positivistic, and it's not humanistic in the way that they claim. It's about, we have the science, they don't know. And I think that kind of combative approach does kind of give truth to does feed into some of the claims, the false claims about archaeologists that Hancock and his cronies like. And I do feel that what this letter doesn't do is provide, it does hint at it, but it doesn't fully provide some of the positive narrative building that archaeologists have done to change our understanding of the human story. We've got really exciting stories that blow Ancient Apocalypse out of the water, and I think we need to be talking about them rather than simply fact-checking these imbeciles like Hancock. The other point we have to say, and I talk about this a lot on my channel, so this should be nothing new to you, is that the discipline of archaeology is born of the same nonsense that Hancock's taking his ideas from. We are part of that legacy too, of 19th century racial, white supremacist, imperialist, colonialist discourse. And we as a discipline have worked hard to unpick that tradition, but we've still got a long way to go. So I think it's, while he's writing to global TV executives, and that may not be an important point to include, I think it's important to remember that we're not pure as the driven snow here. The very same pernicious narratives that Hancock is spouting seem harmless, but they're based on the same dangerous discourses and dumbing down rhetorics that simplify the global story down to a simple diffusion of some ancient fictional civilization. We have come from those roots too. We are guilty, and I think in that positivistic, almost American-centric approach here, despite the fact Hancock's writing about places in Indonesia, in Egypt, all over the show, this is written from an American perspective. It shows that inheritance of a colonial legacy. The SAA are very much still a colonial body ruling over the authoritative discourse of how we should study the past. And I have a bit of a problem with that, because it doesn't take into account that we're part of the problem too. Though we're working with descendant communities, we're working with local communities more and more, I still think this letter sort of smacks of that same attitude. And I suppose the other point I would make is that it's combative. And maybe we need to be combative sometimes and push back against Hancock and his cronies. But, I don't know how this comes across to people outside of the discipline. And maybe this isn't such a good take. I don't know. But also, I don't think it's necessarily sensitive to the fact that a lot of archaeologists spend a lot of time researching actual media archaeology. Why is this stuff important? Why is this stuff attractive to global audiences? About mysteries, about hidden truths, about secrets that the establishment don't want you to know. And people lap that up because it sounds cool, it sounds edgy, it sounds like Hancock's a renegade rather than just a posh English guy who lives in Bath and has done very well out of spinning lies for 40 years of his adult career. No, he is somehow on the edge of something. He's as radical as Boris Johnson. That's what I'm trying to say. He's nothing, he's offering nothing that is radical or dangerous. He's just offering nonsense, and people lap it up because they think it's renegade. And I think archaeologists have to be more sensitive and canny about that and work to counter that kind of approach. Okay, I'm not saying, so again, I'm not disagreeing with the SAA. I think there are some bigger problems with how we present and deal with this kind of issue. And I think that some of the social media responses to Hancock in the last couple of weeks have very much fulfilled his fantasy that archaeologists are gatekeepers, that we punch down against non-specialists, because I've seen quite a few archaeologists fall into that trap of just ranting at Hancock without actually providing an alternative. Now, about the second point, the misrepresentation of docu-series. Now, I totally agree. This shouldn't be called a docu-series. It should never even have the style and structure of being a documentary at all. But I would also say that we can't really say that when, if you don't understand that archaeology exists in popular culture, mostly in fiction, in horror movies, in sci-fi, in historical dramas set in the 19th century. Archaeology is found more in popular culture, in fable and fiction, than it is found in documentaries. So it's hardly surprising. You can't criticise Netflix for calling this a documentary when archaeology is still really inhabiting a world in which you're more likely to come across a Indiana Jones, a Lara Croft. Even spiritual combatants like a Van Helsing are in part archaeological. I don't think you can just say, oh, you're misrepresenting a serious discipline, when actually most people's archaeological engagement is via those fantasies, via those fictions. I also think that we need to bear in mind that you call it archaeologists in the States have a problem, and it's not their problem, but there is no real genuine documentary about archaeology that is popular and showing in the States. UK has had Time Team digging for Britain, digging up Britain's past, Great British Digging Bake Off, or whatever it's called. All these popular shows. The UK, I'm sorry Americans, we actually do have genuine archaeology shows, even ones we don't particularly like, such as Digging for Treasure, a show that came out recently, and I did a YouTube video critiquing it. I still have to say hats off to them. There's some genuine experts, genuine discoveries. It's worth watching, right? As far as I can tell from all these American shows, it's all effluent. It's all. There's not even a saving grace for any of these shows. And the problem that the SAA have is not their fault, but there's nothing good to compare it against. There's nothing to go, hey, Netflix, let's do something different. Let's do something better. There's nothing out there. And so the problem they've got is saying, you shouldn't call this a documentary, because I don't think American TV companies have any good example of a popular show that's made it. And so they can't follow the lead of anything. They can't go, oh yeah, like remember that show back in the 90s that did really well? We could follow that model. They don't have a model to follow, a template to follow. All they've got is dished up mysteries, occultism, and ancient alien BS. And so I'm not saying that's the SAA's fault, but I think they've got to remember there's a broader context of media archaeology that they've got to understand before they write to TV execs complaining about ancient apocalypse. That's my take anyway. There's no alternatives that seem to be on offer, and that's sad, but true. Now the third point is the racist ideologies. Yes, I totally agree. From what I've seen and what I understand, Hancock is inadvertently spinning an ongoing racially ideological view of the human history through an Aliens Atlantis style fiction of an ancient civilization that draws itself from those white supremacist narratives. So there's no argument for me on that. But let's not get into the habit, and archaeologists have a really shitty habit of doing this, of then branding anyone who actually finds the show interesting or fun as a racist too. That is not the way to go. You're going to alienate the vast majority of people, and all you're going to do is sound like a haranguing Puritan shouting at everyone else who doesn't understand the truth about how they're all ignorant. This is how we lost Brexit. This is how we lose any kind of argument that is against a popularist fantasy narrative. Whether it's taking back control of the British economy, whether it's about the existence of an ancient civilization, if all you do is shout at people and don't give them information to build on a more interesting and nuanced approach, you're just alienating the audience, and you're just giving a gift to the grifters and the extremists. So yes, it's racist. Yes, it's pernicious and dangerous, and it feeds extremism. But also, don't fold the audiences into that narrative. Don't make everyone guilty by association, because you're never going to win round anyone by just shouting you're a racist at them. And I think that's what the danger of some of the archaeological reactions I've seen on social media have been. We have to engage with fringe ideas. We shouldn't sit down politely in a room and indulge them. We don't have to do that. You've seen me on videos. I'm happy to call bullshit on many a thing. I'm not scared of doing that. But I think equally we've got to give people a way in. Okay, that's the crap. now let me tell you something important, what we do know about this period, this time. And I don't always get that right, and sometimes when I suspect someone is just sea lining or gaslighting, I just shut off and I go, no. But I think the broader audiences we face need to be seeing that we respect people's spiritual beliefs, that we respect people's religious beliefs, and frankly, Ancient Aliens is a kind of religious belief system that's not based on any fact. It's based on faith that there's some ancient greater power out there, whether they're white and male, or and from Europe, or from aliens, spacecraft, that there's some superior force that has divined our future. Well, believe that if you want. I think it's nonsense, and I'll tell people I think it's nonsense, but I want to respect that people have a right to those kind of views. But what we can do is give them the nuance, give them the information to build a more informed understanding. And to be aware that there's a spectrum. Yeah, there are the hardcore, die-hard Hancock followers and Ancient Apocalypse devotees. There always will be. And then there'll be the dickheads who show up online and will argue with you just because they can see an academic and is getting wound up by something. So there'll be the trolls. But then most people will be, all right, I've heard about this Ancient Apocalypse. What the hell's the issue? And many people will generally not know why this is a problem. And it's very easy, because all you have to say is, well, it's predicated on Victorian racial understandings, racial ideologies. It's without evidence base. There's no evidence, any convincing evidence backing it up. And, we've got much more cooler things to talk about. So I think we've got to be careful of feeding the hype and feeding this view that this is the principal or only problem we have. Because the other point to say is that there's out there an entire ecosystem of pseudo-archaeologists. And do you know what? For my research on the early Middle Ages, late Roman, late Antiquity, early Middle Ages, Hancock's not touching any of my sites because he's not interested in my sites. I've got to deal with other kinds of scumbag. I've got to deal with the Rome isn't real. I've got to deal with the Celtic nationalist fundamentalists who believe that the Celts are some pure spiritual race. I've got to deal with the Germanomaniacs, the crazy Viking loons, the braided hair crazies. These are people that are doing much more dangerous work in peddling misinformation about the human past from my periods than anything talking about pre-Ice Age civilizations that we all know didn't exist, because people are Anglo-Saxons, Vikings, Celts. These are the periods, the Romans, a lot of fascists love the Romans, these are the periods, I think, where the real fight is, and I think the SAA and others are missing this. They're so obsessed with prehistory, which is, for many people, I'm not saying this, for many people, it's so long ago, who gives a flying fart anyway? The real periods that people care about are historical archaeologists, archaeologies. People who would try and claim that there was not indentured labourers, that there were not slavery in the people are, those are the real pernicious. We've got black historical archaeologists who've worked for generations, alongside archaeologists across the world, excavating plantations and the infrastructure of the American South and the Caribbean and so on. And yet still people will argue, oh no, it was all a lovely life, just people sat around all day, or whatever. My point is, those are the periods that matter. The historical past, the proto-historical past, and then moving into historic periods, the Middle Ages and the modern era. And all of this, for me, the SAA and Hancock is a sideshow of comedians off in the distant past. For me, the real fight is for the centuries of the ancient world, the medieval world and the modern world, where people are obsessed with hunting Cleopatra's tomb and with what skin colour the Vikings were. And nonsense like this, and whether they had dreadlocks. This is the kind of crap that I think matters, because it does affect people today on a global scale. Anyway, this is a bit of a rant. I suppose my point is, well, this is my bloody channel, I can rant if I want. But where I'm going with this is that the SAA have done a good job here, and I agree with them on their 3 key points, but I think there's a broader context. One, the attacks against archaeology and the humanities are broader, far broader than jokers like Hancock. 2, docu-series, maybe it should be called science fiction, but there's a lot of good archaeology in science fiction, and there's a lot of other representations of archaeology in our media that need to be addressed. Some of them positive, some of them negative, but there's broader issues. And thirdly, yes, it's a racist ideology, but there's so much more racist BS out there than simply ancient aliens and ancient apocalypses. And we've got to take on misinformation about the early Middle Ages, my specialism, alongside the misrepresentation of later centuries, historic periods, where archaeological evidence is combating these fantasies. That's where we should be focusing our attention, not on fictional civilizations that don't exist anyway. And we should not be drawing our attention exclusively to Hancock, who just laps it up. He's a journalist, he's a grifter, he loves this stuff. So I'm all with the SAA, but I'm also think that, again, I feel that the archaeological community have got on their high horse and have started bashing Hancock without thinking of the broader challenges we're facing in a world that hates experts. No one wants to know, and we actually need to focus on constructive stories that engage with the real issues that matter. No, there were no such things as a pure Viking race of Nordic super people. This is all nonsense. You know, that's the kind of thing that I've been combating on this channel, and I find a lot of affinity with people with spiritual beliefs and what archaeologists call fringe ideologies, where they're with me all the way in combating these crazies. So that's where I think we should be focusing our attention and writing our letters and supporting and constructive dialogues with non-experts, with avocational archaeologists, historians, folklorists, spiritualists of various different kinds, whether it's pagan or otherwise. That's where we do good, rather than just bitching about ancient aliens. Anyway, and the other thing is, of course, what do we do for the future? Well, new voices, new archaeologists from a diverse range of backgrounds, critique the misinformation, but provide passionate narratives to replace it. Lobby for change on every level, from government down. Stand up for archaeologists when they actually want a decent pay so they can do their work, rather than allowing our neoliberal universities to underpay us. You know, these are the kind of things we should be doing, rather than simply writing letters to TV executives about programs that have already been aired and it's all too late. So what's the point anyway? Anyway, that's my little rant about that. But you know what? And that segues into my third and most important aspect I wanted to talk to you about. Because forget Ancient Aliens, the trailer 1 minute 43 has dropped for Indiana Jones 5. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And I want to reflect on it. It's got all the ingredients. I've only watched the trailer. And this is really important. This is positive, because everyone said, oh, Indiana Jones is inaccurate. Indiana Jones is misrepresenting archaeology. Bullshit. Indiana Jones is what archaeology should and it should be and is. It's about adventure. It's about detection. It's about combating baddies. It's about seeking out mysteries, and it's about having a good time while doing it. Of course, nothing in any of the Indiana Jones films is accurate to how archaeologists think, work, and what the archaeological past is about. But that's not the point. And this film, you know, if archaeologists put some effort into promoting this film and having conversations about it, what the film gets wrong, what the film represents, how it relates to the previous films, how does it relate to other fictional archaeologists, from River Song in the Doctor Who series to every archaeologist seen accidentally opening a Book of the Dead in the Mummy films or whatever. You know, those are the fun ways we can engage new audience with, rather than simply whining about Graham Hancock. That's my view on that. So it's got nostalgia in it. He's using the same chalkboard to show the same representations of Neolithic tombs from southern Britain that he did in the first film. So he hasn't got PowerPoint. I don't know exactly when the new film is set. Is it supposed to be set in the 70s, 80s? I'm not sure. But he hasn't moved. It's not fully computerized. I just love it. If you know, this nostalgia for the earlier films, a mixture of fun, action, spiritualism and magic, a discovery, ancient ruins, and probably nonsense storylines that everyone will whine about. It's great. And I just want to say, as my third point for this live, is go out and support Indiana Jones as a positive way we can bring archaeology back into the popular discourse. Yes, we need serious documentaries. Yes, we need responsible online engagement about real issues, but we should also have a bit of fun, and a bit of Indiana Jones has never done anyone any harm. That's my take on it all. Right, I'm going to now look back through the comments and see if there's anything I need to actually respond to, if there's any actual any questions that I should be answering, and I probably will miss loads of them. Where would I recommend to go for Viking archaeology? Depends where you are, Venerable John 2. Do you want to go to Lindisfarne to see the monastery, the ruins of the late medieval Benedictine priory, over which archaeologists have been excavating the site of the early medieval monastery that was famously sacked by Norse raiders in 793. So there's no actual archaeology of the Vikings at Lindisfarne, but go to Holy Island on the Northumbrian coast and visit one of the earliest Christian monastic sites of the British Isles, founded by Aidan in the Kingdom of Northumbria. And there's the museum there has amazing preserved stone sculptures of that monastery that was ransacked by the Vikings at least 3 times. I don't know how many raids on Lindisfarne there were. Lots of them. Yeah, go to Lindisfarne if you want. If you want to come down my way to Chester, Chester's a Roman city. It was a Viking town too. So we've got evidence of Vikings here. So don't go to Jorvik. York's got too much of a big head. Don't. They already no. Go to Jorvik. Go to York as well. Lindisfarne, York, Chester, but plenty else besides. And if you're in Scandinavia, so many sites. Where do I teach? I teach at the University of Chester in England, in the northwest of England, on the very edges of Wales, in the UK. Someone's already answered that. I'm currently reading A Children of Ash and Elm. I've got that right here. I've been wafting that at my students today. Professor Neil Price of Uppsala University, The Children of Ash and Elm, A History of the Vikings. 10% nonsense, 90% fun, and 100% archaeo facts. I love it, and worth getting. I've done a video about promoting it before. It's the latest of a series of really good new popular introductions to Viking archaeology. Let's have a look. I appreciate everything you're doing. Hello, Letitia. Yeah, hello. Thank you very much. Fourth Doctor. Yes, that's good. Yeah, thank you for the support on the strike side of things, everyone. I appreciate that. I don't even know what you're talking about. What have I blurted out? Have I just said something sweary? Probably. I think this is early reactions to me maybe saying some swear words. I don't know. Indiana Jones is cool. Coming in with their evidence-based ideas. Poor Hancock. Well, it's ridiculous, isn't it? You know. It's it's next generation Von Daniken. I mean, that's the point. It's all based in dodgy stuff. There's nothing really to merit it. I'm not defending it. I'm just saying that I think the SAA in this statement, there's nothing wrong with their statement. I think they're right to make the statement. They've got to stand up. They're the international society. I'm not a member. I'm on the European side of things, and I've even given up with them. But that's not the point. There's a lot of pomposity in the academic community that I think comes across wrong. I think we just got to be they don't always have the best way of doing things. There's so much, I get told off by Americans all the time in academic circles, and sometimes they tell me off for good reasons and I deserve to be told off, but a lot of the time they tell me off because they haven't even listened to what I said first and they haven't even reflected. And I must say, some of the people cited in that letter have been some of the biggest jerks in the last 2-3 years in the archaeological community, and they've bought into some pseudo-archaeology themselves. So, as they often say, the problem is not only those outside the academic community. Some of our biggest problems is some of the clowns within it. I won't say more, but I could. It depends how much I've drunk. There's lots of good comments here. Archaeology on APTN in Canada is a pretty good archaeology show. Thank you for the recommendation, Steve Thompson 666. I'll make a note of that one because I didn't know about. I don't watch a lot of TV, to be honest with you. I think my general point still stands that I've asked American archaeologists, well, if you say this is crap, which I don't doubt, what's good? And they say, well, we've tried to make TV programs and the channels, the networks won't pick it up, they won't fund it, and that's not their fault, but it's a vicious cycle. Me for the new show. Thank you, Rebel Rabbi. Yes, I will be the new face of archaeology, and everyone can slag off how I do it all wrong. But at least, as long as I get a free coffee every day and maybe some chocolate, I will talk for hours about archaeology to anyone who listen. That's the thing. That's the thing. I don't even need to rehearse. You know, who rehearses? Just rant at the camera. And it's dumbing down. Yes, I agree with that. It is dumbing down stuff. Lots of good conversations here. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I need to respond to other than lots of good natters between everyone. Yeah, and do you know what? I think can I actually respond to a point here about the evidence being presented? Why do TV shows not afford audiences with, what do you think? Here's some evidence. Is this or is it this? I've seen TV shows do that for other areas, for science areas. You know, actually not patronise everyone. Somehow, though, when they're doing all these archaeology programmes, they assume everyone wants a moronic, dumbed-down, imbecilic answer. And no, I don't think the public do. I don't do that with my students. I present them with, this is what we know, but we don't know whether A, B, C, D is true. What do you think? And they sometimes come back with ideas. Why don't we do that more? Scarf flapping? I don't know what you mean about scarf flapping. How dare you? I never flap. I flip and flop. Or maybe a bit of flap. I don't know the difference anymore, really. Doctor Who. Doctor Who. I need a t-shirt, say stop. Yes, very good. Yeah, Indiana Jones. So I mean, I don't know how old he's supposed to be, but I hope he does. Punch some baddies, and I hope they're baddies that I can fine with. As long as he doesn't go over to the dark side and start babbling on about. I mean, because the thing about Indiana Jones is he's always been a skeptic about ancient aliens, and the idea is he's supposed to be a man of rational who's then encounters things he can't explain, and whether, you know, obviously it's fantastical and ridiculous, but that's one of the things that I think is really lovely about Indiana Jones, is he doesn't really believe everything even when he's seen these things. So I think it's a really good dynamic for those that are skeptical of spiritual matters. Got lots of comments here. Yes, I will be wearing the scarf. Well, you know what, I think, unless I can find any additional questions, I'm going to wrap it up now while the going is good and before the weirdos haven't turned up, because all you were lovely and all the moderators are chucking out all the weirdos. But either way, I think 45 minutes is a little longer than I intended to. So I'm going to keep going with TikTok, YouTube, Archaeodeath. Follow me on Mastodon and Twitter and Facebook and all the other, and Instagram. I forgot to mention Instagram. Support us where you can when we're doing striking stuff, but I'll be getting back to sharing information and debates at the earliest opportunity, as soon as I had a sleep and a burger. I'll be back. I might even post something tonight. But thank you, everyone. Where are we on Mastodon? Oh, I don't know. I've just set up an account. I don't even know what my Mastodon account is. Hang on. Let me find it. Hang on. Just give me a second, because that would be... I am... It'd be good if I actually knew where I was. I'm on... here we are. H Commons Social at Archaeodeath. That's me. I've just put that in the chat. That's my new Mastodon account. I've got 76 followers. Who cares about 28,000 on TikTok when I got 76 on Mastodon? You know. But it feels good. It feels fresh. I mean, I don't know if anyone. I don't know how it goes, but I'm showing some of my old blog posts on there at the moment from 2013 when the blog began. So that's going to be fun. What's the name? Archaeodeath. It's all Archaeodeath across most social media, or Howard MRW. Also on Twitter, I'm at Howard MRW on Twitter. That's how you find me on there. And I don't comment on every subject, and I'm quite shy. I don't, as you can tell, I'm a shy retiring professor. I don't rant on about Graham Hancock because I don't want to give oxygen to the grifters and jokers all the time. So I can't keep it back a little bit, But I thought on this live that would be the subject I rant about, both to agree with the SAA and to suggest that maybe they should be focusing on other issues too. And they are, to be honest. They've done statements about museums selling off their indigenous collections and stuff. They're a voice of good. I'm not criticising them. I'm just saying we need to not give oxygen to the lunatics. Right. On that note, thank you very much. Lovely to see you all. So many people on here who leave nice comments for me, and on TikTok and elsewhere, coming in here to offer their views. There's Mike Bono. Yeah, I remember you saying nice things. Yeah, shy. Yeah, I'm shy and retiring. Shy and retiring. Anyway, thank you everybody for following me and for keeping up the good vibes, and I'll be back. I might be doing another Doctor Who live with the Rebel Rabbi. I might be doing a live with the Spiritual Squirrel Vox, if she's been promising to do a live with me for many an hour, and various others. So we shall see what transpires. But for now, farewell from Archaeoden.
For relaxing times, make it Archaeoden time.